A long time ago, a powerful faction extracted resources from divine ruins. These resources were obtained by miners who used pickaxes and heavy machinery to destroy large ancient statues. However, monsters guarding the ruins appeared and managed to drive everyone away from the site. These monsters went on to live in the land of humans, but as they were incompatible with the environment, they gradually transformed into spiritual bodies. In this way, they began to attach themselves to chosen human hosts to survive. And this situation continued like this until the present day. Amidst this, the Guardians punished those who desecrated the ruins. Now, constantly in the city, giant screens display warnings about the increase in attacks by mutant life forms, asking the population of affected areas to remain vigilant and protected. Intense rain hangs over a subway station, and inside one of the trains, tiredness was collective. Sunken eyes, slumped shoulders, no one spoke. Only the rocking of the train car lulled that heavy silence of those already accustomed to living in fear. And amidst the crowd, a young man named Qin Shi, recently graduated, was immersed in his music. With no clear talent and a confusing specialization, our hero wanted to enjoy life for 2 more years. But his family kicked him out before that, and like many other people, he came to Chihuang City to make a living. Suddenly, a symbol glows on the arm of a police officer dozing on the train, and a monstrous hand approaches him from behind. It was a huge and frightening creature with red eyes and sharp claws. Saliva dripped from its mouth. Around, the passengers soon noticed the creature approaching and panic. Everyone starts screaming and running from one side of the car to the other in disorder. And in the midst of this, our hero, inattentive, is pushed. Irritated, he takes off his headphones and yells for them to be careful, complaining that it's hard not to get irritated in an environment like that. At that moment, he and the other passengers see the lifeless body of the police officer lying on the floor of the car with a pool of dark blood around him. The mutant creature roars furiously, shouting repeatedly that it will demolish everything. Terror gripped the car the instant the creature approached. One look was enough for everyone to recognize that lethal mutation that haunted the headlines. Ancient monsters had merged with human bodies as spirits, giving rise to the dreaded mutant life forms. Now, before everyone, the creature claimed that the place needed to be demolished. Dominated by the hatred it cultivated, the creature raged, attacked a passenger, and warned that anyone who stopped it would end up dead. Panic spread again, and Qin Shi, stunned, realized that, unlike the videos, this was a real situation, and it was the first time he had seen a mutant up close. While chaos took over, a voice sounded indifferently, warning that the train was approaching the next station and asking passengers to take care of their safety. Suddenly, the train brakes sharply, throwing several passengers against the front window, which shatters on impact. Many others are violently thrown around the car due to the sudden stop. Finally, the train stops and the doors open. In desperation, the passengers push each other to get out. In the midst of the confusion, our protagonist is pushed again. People run desperately down the platform, warning about the mutant creature inside the train and asking for help. On the floor of the car, bags, broken cell phones, and bloodstains remain, silent witnesses to the chaos. Qin Shi, still fallen, looks at the danger in front of him, sweating and visibly frightened by the situation. Then, the creature stopped in front of Qin Shi, completely delirious, holding the remains of a shattered human in its hands, looking for its next target. With its mouth open and showing its sharp fangs, the creature shouts that it will demolish, expand, flatten tombs, and reclaim lands. For our hero, it could only be bad luck, him running into a professional demolisher out of his mind. He imagined that the man must have let himself be carried away by some strong emotion, and the parasite took advantage. He then glanced quickly at the still open door of the train, silently calculating when the right chance to escape through it would arise. However, looking back, he sees an elderly lady hugging a terrified child. The girl says she is scared, but the grandmother comforts her, stating that she is there to protect her. Qin Shi then turns to them and says that he will lure the monster away, giving them a chance to escape. The lady, worried, asks what will happen to him, but he replies not to worry, as he was part of the university's athletics team, although he didn't win anything there. At the same time, another mysterious creature laughs, saying that it has finally found the young man from that time. Soon, Qin Shi tries to get the creature's attention. He shouts that he is there and, in a daring impulse, throws a backpack at the monster, hitting it squarely. He then starts running quickly out of the train, trying to lure the creature away from the lady and the child. While running, Qin Shi still finds breath to provoke the creature. He looks over his shoulder and yells, telling it to look at him, calling it an idiot. And, well, the creature, enraged by the provocation, advances rapidly, and in an instant, the monster reaches Qin Shi and grabs him by the hood of his jacket. It held him tightly. Our hero, gripped by panic, realizes too late that he has been slow. Outside, as the train doors begin to close, the lady, now safe with her granddaughter and some guards, cries for help, warning that there is still a survivor inside. But it was too late. The monster lands a powerful punch to our protagonist's stomach, and then throws him violently against the platform floor. Fallen and injured, Qin Shi groans in in pain as blood drips from his mouth. And scorning him, the creature just lets out a grunt, watching its victim on the floor. With a bitter smile and watery eyes, Qin realizes that he miscalculated everything. In the end, the lady and her granddaughter watch helplessly from outside as the train doors close. Their faces reflect the shock and concern as they see the fate of the young man who saved them. Alone and cornered, our protagonist's eyes begin to close as he wonders, in a last thread of consciousness, if he will die right there. Outside, the child and grandmother insistently shout that the poor man is still trapped, begging for help. But one of the guards, without hesitation, just tells them to get away from there. Soon, an authority figure approaches, informing them that the mutant life form will be handed over to the security department, and orders that no one act rashly. Meanwhile, inside the car, a dark energy begins to flow. That energy then turns against Qin Shi, who can hardly believe he is experiencing something like this. His hand closes with difficulty on the cold floor of the platform. He refuses to fall like that, seized by the lament of being only at the beginning of his life. Then, amidst his clouded consciousness, a memory emerges. In his room, his mother watched him with disapproval, saying that there was no more hope for him, and making a comparison with a certain little Zhu, the neighbor's son. In another memory, he was bullied at school. 3 bullies surrounded him, one of them sarcastically saying to be friends. With that, our hero could only think about how irritating his life was. In yet another memory, he, a born loser, confessed his love to a girl, only to be rejected immediately afterwards. Back in the present, pain and indignation take over his heart. He coughs violently, spitting blood on the floor. Gasping and sweating cold, he struggles to breathe. And in his last moments, a burning desire consumed him. He wanted to win, at least once. Meanwhile, the creature raises its fist, ready for the final blow. But the instant the monster's fist descends, the dark energy from before flows towards him to protect him. Sweat dripped down his forehead, but he barely felt it. With gritted teeth and a face filled with determination, he was determined not to give in. A cry echoed within him. Live and win. Then the creature's powerful punch continued to approach, closer and closer. That's when suddenly the dark energy completely envelops him, merging with his body in an explosion of power. In his mind, an ancient voice suddenly emerges, laughing and remembering the time they had spent without meeting. Confused and submerged in that strange sensation, our hero wondered what it was. Then he thought it could only be an illusion, his mind trying to understand what came after death. But the voice responded with disdain, saying that useless death was better left to others, and that what he was experiencing was definitely not an illusion. Immediately afterwards, the dark energy begins to materialize over Qin Shi's body, and black armor with golden details completely envelops him. At the same time, the monster's punch is about to hit him squarely, but soon his fist meets resistance, colliding with Qin Shi's now armored arm. The entity within him then announces that it will give him something. Our hero, now with a new form, smiles confidently as he holds back the monster's attack. And well, what our hero had received from that entity, in the end, was hope. The monster recoils slightly, surprised by the force of the block, while pieces of its form seem to detach on impact. Without wasting time, Qin Shi, propelled by the entity, disintegrates the creature's right arm. Then his hands transform, and sharp golden claws emerge on one of them, but they quickly change color to a scarlet red. The entity explains that these are the claws capable of severing the connection between a person and their parasitic spirit. With that, his new weapons tore through the air in a swift strike. With euphoria, the entity exclaims that it's time for surgery as it attacks the monster with a series of furious blows using both claws. Then, in a final upward stroke of the red claws, the entity fervently proclaimed that he was free. Immediately, the parasitic spirit is expelled from the host's body, which now returns to its original human form. The man falls back onto one of the train seats, visibly weakened after the separation. He then begins to foam, vomiting a thick white substance while tears stream from his rolled back eyes. The parasitic spirit, now free from the body, assumes an ethereal blue form, floating near its former host. The entity housed within Qin Shi greets the newly liberated spirit. The ghostly bear growls in response, but with great fear. Soon it tries to escape quickly, sliding across the floor of the car like a trail of blue energy. But its path is blocked by our protagonist's armored foot, which stomps firmly on the ground, preventing escape. The entity then grabs the bear spirit, exclaiming that it is food and high-quality food. Without hesitation, our hero opens his huge mouth, declaring that he will not hold back. Then, he devours the parasitic spirit in one gulp, letting out a howl as his belly seems to swell momentarily. Satisfied, he burps, and grimacing, he laughs and exclaims that it was disgusting, letting out a breath through his mouth. At that moment, he hears footsteps approaching. It was the security department guards, advancing along the platform towards him. His eyes narrow as he identifies the uniforms. The soldiers approached, their faces hidden by masked helmets and weapons raised, ready to exterminate him without hesitation. Suddenly, a pang of weakness runs through the entity, as if something were draining it from within. He felt the the transformation fail at precisely the wrong time, and he thought with concern that he couldn't collapse right at that moment. Part of the armor begins to dissipate, revealing Qin-Shi's face underneath as he struggles to maintain control. His hands, still transformed into sharp red claws, remain visible. Soon, our hero turns and faces his own reflection in the train window, seeing the monstrous figure he has become. In shock, our hero puts his hands on his head, asking what is happening. Facing the soldiers, he panics, not understanding what he has done, what is happening, or why the hell he has horns on his head. One of the guards, visibly confused, asks what manga our protagonist cosplay is from. Then, everyone stops running and just starts watching him. Qin-Shi then looks at the unconscious man on the train seat. Soon, he recalls the attack on the parasitic spirit and wonders if it was he who did that. The entity appears beside him like a shadow, saying that it was he who had saved his life. Qin-Shi, still trembling, asks if that means he has been parasitized. Horrified, he points to the unconscious man and accuses the entity of killing him. The entity rolls its eyes and calls him an idiot, saying that the man just fainted. But before they can continue the conversation, one of the guards orders them to open fire. Several energy beams are fired towards them, hitting them squarely. But our protagonist's body moves on its own, dodging the bullets with instinctive precision. And amidst the chaos, he yells, demanding to know who this entity is, cursing it for taking control of his body. But the entity ignores him and suggests that they need to get out of there first. Suddenly, a tranquilizer dart hits our hero's armor. Soon, the entity comments that, apparently, they are not yet perfectly synchronized. Immediately afterwards, Qin-Shi begins to writhe as he laughs, saying that the dart tickles as it hit him right in the butt. Meanwhile, the guards look at each other, clearly embarrassed. One of the soldiers states that the tranquilizer dart is ineffective against him. Faced with this, he orders them to use a shock grenade to stun him. But the entity, regaining control of his body, replies that he can leave everything to him. His face now shows pure determination. As a guard throws the shock grenade, which explodes right behind him, our protagonist jumps agilely towards the missile. With an agile movement of his claws, he deflects the grenade's projectile and, saying goodbye, disappears from the scene with a swift jump. The projectile ricochets back towards the soldiers and then explodes right in the middle of the train car. With that, taking advantage of the distraction, our hero breaks the train window with a powerful leap and flies away from the station, leaving trails of purple energy behind him. Chaos ensues on the platform. Soldiers regroup amidst the smoke and debris, while others run to help the injured. Shortly after, a robotic dog arrives at the scene, accompanying a mysterious figure. It was a blonde woman, the infantry captain. One of the soldiers salutes her respectfully, and she, without wasting time, yells, wanting to know what the situation is inside and if the target has already been captured. Inside the damaged car, one of the soldiers reports to the captain, explaining that the target was extremely agile and that they were unable to catch him. With a stern look, the captain expresses her disappointment, saying that she wanted to give him a chance to prove himself, but states that he ended up disappointing her. Meanwhile, the robotic dog approaches the unconscious man on the seat and begins to sniff him carefully. And the view from the broken train window showed only the open sky, leaving the trail of the escape still fresh in the air. As the captain pets the dog and demands quick results, the animal comments that she always bows when speaking and imagines how tiring that must be. But in response, the dog lets out a ferocious roar, opening its mouth and showing its sharp teeth. Soon after, it begins to transform, assuming a humanoid form with gray hair. Now in his human form, he composes himself, standing in a more relaxed posture next to the captain. While putting on his coat, the captain says that he was more approachable as an animal, but he immediately retorts, reminding her that this way they understand each other better and there is respect from both sides. Then he approaches the broken window and observes the surroundings carefully. From the claw marks and the type of conflict, he deduces that it could only be him. The captain asks about the distance, and the dog explains that a newly formed spirit in a human body is too unstable to have gone far. Back on the platform, the captain laments to Bufeng that they still depend on the great mystic, complaining that the security bureau is full of useless expendables, and she comments that a talent like his would be welcome by her side. But Bufeng dismisses the idea, saying that he is not omnipotent nor good at everything. He explains that each mystic has their own unique abilities. They were born different from normal people, and therefore it is not convenient to join any specific organization. Suddenly, he asks for a moment, and then sits down on the back of one of the train seats. The captain reprimands him, saying that it is not time to rest, but Bufeng asks for silence, explaining that he is sensing the target's energy. Shortly after, he warns that finding him will cost extra, but the captain replies that he shouldn't worry, as he will be well rewarded. Then he closes his eyes, concentrating intensely, and focuses his senses as a subtle energy begins to emanate around him. Meanwhile, our hero runs desperately, leaving trails of purple energy with each step he takes. He crosses the city at high speed, like a blur passing through through the buildings. His armored form cuts through the air as he flees, but suddenly the armor on his back begins to glow intensely, and then it begins to detach from his body, forming the face of a demon in the process. Back on the train, Bufeng sweats, still with his eyes closed. In his mind, he sees himself facing the enormous demonic entity, which growls at him. He pushes himself even harder. The entity then runs its tongue across its face with a disturbing gesture laden with mockery. With that, Bufeng instinctively recoils, feeling a chill run through his body. His eyes widen in shock and astonishment. Soon, our protagonist's entity begins to chew on the white-haired man within his own mind, mockingly sarcastically about how frightening his tracking technique was. Suddenly, a drop of sweat drips onto the floor of the car, breaking the tense silence of that moment. With that, one of the extra soldiers turns to the captain and tells her to look. She then turns, panting and foaming at the mouth. Bufeng finally opens his eyes and announces that he has found him. The captain stares at him in surprise. Immediately afterwards, he collapses, falling forward completely exhausted. As he falls, he murmurs something about the target's impressive presence and wishes the captain good luck. She, without wasting time, orders a soldier to call the medical team, and he readily confirms. But before he loses consciousness, the captain grabs him by the collar, demanding to know the exact location. And with his last strength, Bufeng still manages to whisper that the target is in District 9. The captain closes her eyes for a moment, processing the information. Then, without hesitation, she summons a special unit shouting "Flying Squirrel." It was at that moment that, amidst sparks of electricity, a ninja appears out of nowhere, replying that he is at her command. She orders him to pursue the target. The soldier, apparently much more powerful than the others we have seen, confirms the order and shoots off at high speed, enveloped in an aura of blue energy and lightning, leaving the station behind. Confidently, the captain comments that when it comes to speed, no one can match Flying Squirrel.